What if I told you that the secret to living past 100 has nothing to do with superfoods, nothing to do with expensive supplements, and absolutely nothing to do with that green smoothie you force yourself to drink every morning? Researchers have spent decades studying the world's oldest people, and what they found completely shattered everything the health industry has been selling you. The foods these people eat every single day are so ordinary, so affordable, and so shockingly simple that most of us already have them sitting in our kitchen right now, completely ignored. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you will never look at your grocery list the same way again. Welcome back. If you're new here, this channel is all about cutting through the noise and giving you real, science-backed information that actually makes a difference in your life. Today, we are going deep into one of the most fascinating areas of longevity research ever conducted, and I promise you, this is not your typical eat more kale conversation. There are 5 places on Earth where people routinely live past 90, 100, and even 110 years old. These places are called blue zones. They were identified and studied by National Geographic explorer and researcher Dan Buettner, along with a team of scientists and demographers, over the course of many years. The blue zones include Okinawa in Japan, Sardinia in Italy, Nicoya in Costa Rica, Ikaria in Greece, and Loma Linda in California. Now here is the thing that most people miss when they talk about blue zones. Everyone focuses on the individual superfoods or the individual habits, but what the research actually points to is a pattern. A daily dietary pattern that is consistent, humble, and completely counterintuitive to what the modern wellness industry promotes. So let's break it down, food by food, and I'll tell you exactly what these centenarians are eating every single day and why it works. The first food, beans, I know. You heard "not what you think" in the title, and you were expecting something exotic. But here's why beans are genuinely extraordinary, and why dismissing them would be the biggest mistake you make for your health. Across every single blue zone, beans are the cornerstone of the daily diet. We are talking about black beans in Nicoya, lentils in Ikaria, fava beans in Sardinia, and soybeans in Okinawa. Dan Buettner's research found that centenarians in these regions eat at least a full cup of beans every single day. Not occasionally, every single day. Now, why does this matter so much? Beans are one of the most complete packages of nutrition that nature has ever produced. They are loaded with fiber, which feeds the good bacteria in your gut. They are packed with plant-based protein that keeps your muscles strong without the inflammation that can come from excessive red meat consumption. They are rich in magnesium, potassium, folate, and iron. And crucially, they have an incredibly low glycemic index, which means they release energy slowly and keep your blood sugar stable over long periods of time. A landmark study published in the Asia-Pacific Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that among older adults across 5 countries, legumes were the single most important dietary predictor of survival. Every 20-gram increase in daily legume intake was associated with roughly an 8% reduction in mortality risk. Let that sink in. 1 humble cup of beans a day, and your body is operating on an entirely different biological timeline. The second food. Whole grains, not processed grains, not refined white bread. Whole, intact grains with all their fiber and nutrients fully preserved. In Sardinia, the centenarians eat something called pain carasau, a traditional flatbread made from whole grain wheat and baked until crispy. In Okinawa, older generations consumed large quantities of white rice, but earlier generations, who lived the longest, ate primarily whole grain barley and millet. In Ikaria, sourdough bread made from whole wheat flour is a daily staple, and the long fermentation process actually reduces the glycemic load significantly. Whole grains contain resistant starch, a type of fiber that your digestive system cannot fully break down. This resistant starch passes into your large intestine, where it becomes food for your gut microbiome. A healthy, diverse gut microbiome has been linked to reduced inflammation, better immune function, improved mental health, and even a lower risk of certain cancers. The Harvard School of Public Health conducted a long-term study tracking over 100,000 people and found that those who ate the most whole grains had significantly lower rates of cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, and overall mortality. We are not talking about eating bread to cheat your diet. We are talking about eating real whole grain food as a foundation of every single meal. The third food, nuts. Here is another one that sounds too simple to be true. Centenarians across the blue zones eat a small handful of nuts every single day, usually as a mid-morning or mid-afternoon snack. The Adventists in Loma Linda, California, who are among the longest-lived people in the United States, eat nuts 5 times a week on average. Research on this specific population found that nut consumption was associated with an extra 2 to 3 years of life expectancy compared to those who did not eat nuts regularly. What makes nuts so powerful? First, they are extraordinarily dense with heart-healthy unsaturated fats. These fats actively lower LDL cholesterol and reduce inflammation in the arterial walls. Second, nuts are loaded with vitamin E, a potent antioxidant that protects your cells from oxidative damage, which is one of the primary drivers of aging at the cellular level. Third, nuts contain L-arginine, an amino acid that helps keep your arteries flexible and your blood pressure in a healthy range. We are talking about almonds, walnuts, pistachios, Brazil nuts, and cashews. You do not need a fancy nut butter from a specialty health store. Just a small handful of raw or lightly roasted nuts every single day is enough to create measurable changes in your cardiovascular health over time. The fourth food, leafy greens. Not just any vegetables, specifically dark leafy greens, and they need to be eaten in abundance, and, here is the critical part, they should ideally be cooked or wilted rather than always consumed raw. In Icaria, residents eat an extraordinary variety of wild greens. We are talking about purslane, dandelion, arugula, fennel greens, and dozens of others that are foraged fresh from the hillsides. In Okinawa, the diet features large amounts of sweet potato greens and seaweed. In Sardinia, the diet is rich in spinach, kale, and chicory. Leafy greens are among the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet. They are rich in vitamin K, which is essential for bone health and blood clotting regulation. They are packed with folate, which supports DNA repair and is particularly important as we age because DNA damage accumulates over time and is directly linked to cellular aging and cancer risk. They contain lutein and zeaxanthin, 2 carotenoids that protect your eyes and your brain. And they are loaded with nitrates, compounds that your body converts into nitric oxide, a molecule that relaxes and dilates your blood vessels, keeping blood pressure low and circulation healthy. A major study from Rush University Medical Center found that people who ate just 1 serving of leafy greens per day had cognitive abilities equivalent to someone 11 years younger than their actual age. 1 serving, every day. The fifth, food, olive oil. If you live in Sardinia or Icaria, olive oil is not a condiment, it is practically a food group. Centenarians in these regions use 2 to 4 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil every single day, drizzled generously over vegetables, bread, beans, and anything else they happen to be eating. This is not low-fat Mediterranean eating. This is high-quality fat, consumed liberally and confidently. Extra virgin olive oil is one of the most studied foods in nutritional science. It contains oleocanthal, a natural compound that has anti-inflammatory properties remarkably similar to ibuprofen, but without any of the negative side effects. It is rich in oleic acid, a monounsaturated fat that actively reduces inflammation and has been shown to have beneficial effects on gene expression related to cancer. It contains polyphenols that protect the lining of your blood vessels and have been shown to lower the risk of stroke and heart attack significantly. The Predimed study, one of the largest nutritional trials ever conducted, found that people who supplemented their diet with extra virgin olive oil had a 30% lower risk of major cardiovascular events compared to those on a low-fat diet. Not a small effect. 30%. The sixth food, fermented foods. This is perhaps the most underrated piece of the longevity puzzle. In every blue zone, fermented foods appear regularly on the daily table. In Ikaria, it is yogurt and fermented cheese from local goats and sheep. In Okinawa, it is miso, tofu, and natto, which is a fermented soybean product. In Sardinia, it is aged pecorino cheese made from the milk of grass-fed sheep. In Nicoya, even the corn tortillas undergo a traditional fermentation process called nixtamalization. Fermented foods are rich in probiotics, living bacteria that directly seed your gut microbiome with beneficial strains. They also contain bioavailable nutrients that are easier for your body to absorb than their non-fermented counterparts. A healthy gut microbiome regulates immune function, influences your mood and mental health through the gut-brain axis, reduces systemic inflammation, and has even been linked to metabolic health and healthy body weight. Stanford researchers published a landmark study in the journal Cell in 2021 showing that a high fermented food diet increases microbiome diversity and decreases markers of inflammation significantly more than even a high-fiber diet alone. These centenarians have been doing this intuitively for generations without any understanding of the science, and the science is now catching up and confirming exactly what their traditional diets have been doing for centuries. The pattern that ties it all together. Now here is the part that most people miss entirely. These foods are not magic on their own. The reason they work is because of how they are eaten. These centenarians eat these foods every single day, in moderate portions, prepared simply, in the context of a mostly plant-based diet, with very little processed food, very little added sugar, and very little red meat. The longest-lived people in the world eat meat, on average, only 5 times per month. Not 5 times a week, 5 times a month. The rest of the time, their protein comes from beans, whole grains, nuts, and small amounts of fish. They also eat slowly. They eat with other people. They stop eating when they're about 80% full, a concept that the Okinawans actually have a name for, hara hachibu. They cook at home most of the time, and they eat food that looks like food, not something engineered in a factory to hijack your dopamine system and make you eat past the point of hunger. The foods themselves are extraordinary, but the pattern of eating them consistently, daily, simply, and joyfully is what actually produces a life that stretches past the century mark. Here is what I want you to do starting today, not next Monday, not after you finish whatever is in your fridge right now. Today. Pick just one of these 6 foods and make a commitment to eat it every single day for the next 30 days. Just one. Maybe it is a handful of nuts with your afternoon coffee. Maybe it is a cup of lentil soup at lunch. Maybe it is drizzling actual olive oil over your salad instead of that fat-free dressing you have been using. Small, consistent changes compounded over time are exactly how these centenarians built their extraordinary health. They did not do a 30-day detox. They just ate real food every single day for a very long time. If this video gave you even one thing to think differently about, please hit that like button right now because it genuinely helps this channel reach people who need this information. Subscribe if you have not already, because we drop videos like this every week, and I do not want you to miss what's coming next. And drop a comment below telling me which of these 6 foods you are going to start with. I read every single comment, and I will reply to as many as I can. The world's oldest people are not doing anything magical. They are just doing the basics, beautifully, and without fail, every single day. And that is something every single one of us can start doing right now. I'll see you in the next one.